Well, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has reported to have fled the country. There are calls for opposition groups in Syria to start talks on the formation of a new government. So this after rebel groups in the country toppled the government of President Bashar al-Assad. SABC News correspondent Dasha Chernyshova is in Moscow and covering the story for us. Dasha, a very good morning to you. Thanks indeed for your time. So have the rebels been successful to capture Damascus?
Well, as we understand, they have indeed, and this is one of the issues which is of paramount importance. There is no clear understanding where the president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, is present at the moment. There has been no confirmation with regard to that. Some have suggested that he might have already fled and be on his way towards the Russian capital, Moscow, where he was expected to receive the support. However, we have not heard any confirmation, and instead we've heard the Russian officials here in Moscow confirming that they would like to support the current Syrian authorities. But that was just a day ago. Ever since then, since the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has been speaking in Doha, there has been no comment from the Russian authorities whether they are going to continue their support or not. What we have seen certainly was a very rapid development of the situation on the ground, and there is no clear understanding as to how Moscow is going to approach that. Speaking of the previous comments that we have heard from the Russian officials to this unfolding situation was the very fact that the territorial integrity of Syria has to be maintained, and that has been the line we have heard from Sergei Lavrov speaking in Doha several times. We also understand that Moscow was willing to engage into political dialogue with the legitimate opposition forces, and the Russian foreign minister has reminded several times that the HDC was the terrorist organization listed as terrorist by the United States and by the UN itself.
Look, you've already mentioned, some of the speculation about where President Assad is. There's too much speculation about his whereabouts. Do we have any credible information at this particular stage?
Well, there have been indeed various reports as to where he could be. Some have even suggested that it could have been a plane crash, but no credible information available at the moment. What we understand is certainly that the authorities in Syria do no longer belong to Bashar al-Assad or any member of his cabinet. We understand some of the ministers have stayed in the country for the transition of power to the new authorities. But with regards to Assad, there has been no confirmation at all. What we have heard also from the Russian side was that, again, this has not been confirmed by the Kremlin, was the very fact that Assad might have traveled to Moscow about a week ago, and his family might have stayed here. Again, the political commentators have all been saying that could have been the exactly situation. The Kremlin never confirmed those reports, but certainly what we have seen was the very fact that Russia didn't support Assad authorities in the way they have supported them before, because certainly the very rapidly developing situation in the country has provided for the possibility of the current turmoil. What the Russian authorities are now saying is important to do is to avoid any chaos or anarchy within the country, because they say it is very dangerous if the country follows the same pattern that there has been in Iraq and in Libya. And there has been also some understanding from what Sergei Lavrov has been speaking about, that the opposition group that has been making gains so rapidly must have been supported by someone. Then there is the question by whom, and who could have benefited from that. So one way or another, Moscow has said that the political opposition has been geared for the geopolitical purposes.
Yeah, with Bashar al-Assad having been at the helm of the country for 25 years now, has there been any reaction from Israel and other Middle East countries?
Well, certainly we have not seen more reaction coming from Iran, for instance, another country that has been largely supporting the authorities in Syria. Again, there has been muted response from there as well. Obviously, it is the rapidly developing situation. We understand some of the border crossings have been closed between Syria and its neighbors. But the very big question now is also the people, because it is the lives of the civilians that will be at stake, and we have seen some concerns with regards to the fate of the refugees who could be fleeing the area, and they will be certainly going towards the European countries. And then Moscow, for instance, has raised the concern that if the European countries who have concerns about those refugees, they will be seeing the winds of the far right again. So certainly there is a lot at stake. There could be reactions coming from the Middle East, from the region itself, and also from other countries that will see the immediate effect of the turmoil in Syria.
And Dasha, I understand that there's also been some kind of broadcast from the Prime Minister, that's Mohammed Ghazi al-Jalali. Do we know anything of what he said, what that address was about, and basically what the way forward will be from now?
Well, what we understand is that he was willing for the peaceful transfer of power. Now, interestingly, for Russia, for instance, there have been comments with regards to the Russian military presence in Syria, the Hmeimim air base, as well as the Tartus naval base. And he said with regards to that the future of these facilities will depend on the arrangements that the new authorities of the country will make with Moscow. So for the Russian Federation, for instance, there is a concern about the presence and those air bases, those military bases there. Sergei Lavrov yesterday saying that there were no correct reports of the Russian fleet actually leaving the Tartus naval base, saying that they were merely going for the drills in the Mediterranean. So indeed, we understand that the Prime Minister is in the country and he is up there for the peaceful transfer of power to the new authorities.
All right. Dasha, thank you very much indeed. We do appreciate certainly going to be tracking that story throughout the day, certainly making headlines around the world on that. Thank you very much indeed for your time.